versus. We're going to be talking about the Artemis Fowl books versus the Artemis Fowl movie that just recently came out. Oh, the reason I have this hat on, this is the spoiler hat. So basically it means that all spoilers are on the table. I'm going to be talking about things from all 8 Artemis Fowl books and from the entirety of the movie. So if you don't want to hear about that, then you should probably just take off now, because this is going to be on for the duration of the video. So it's not like the books. My final verdict is not at all like the books. Very unfaithful to the source material. However, I also kind of wanted to look at it as a story all by itself. So if you completely separate it from the books, how does it hold up? And it's still very bad. I had a hard time at first separating the two out, but you never really get a sense of a particular person driving the story forward in the movies. Weirdly, nobody has any agency, and the stakes change and they are muddied, and so it's really hard to cling to them. The villain is Opal K'boy, again, separating this out. So what we get in the movie is she's just basically a shrouded figure with a weird voice, and she has this vengeance plot in mind, and she wants to take over the earth because it is unfair that they were driven underground, and it is even more unfair that they put them into stories. I actually liked that part. I thought it was kind of reflective of her vanity. And sidebar, back to the comparison, in the books she's this incredibly vain person, and I thought maybe that's where we were going. Like, not so much, oh, how dare you push us underground, but how dare you make fun of us? Like, I loved this petty motivation. Unfortunately, it never really panned out. There were also a lot of really jarring inconsistencies. And again, I'm not really a person that gets caught up on plot holes. But since the characters were also bad, the plot was very meandering. The fact that there were inconsistencies was really aggravating, because it's not like I was even engaged in any other way. If the characters had been good or the theming had been good, I could easily overlook these things. But there were a lot of moments that just didn't really make sense. For example, Artemis calls himself a criminal mastermind at the end of the movie, when he hasn't really done anything to earn this. He's essentially done like one crime, and that was kidnapping Holly. In this version of things, Artemis is a hero, and he doesn't really manipulate events to happen like he wants. Like, it feels throughout the movie that like something happens and Artemis is like, ah yes, all according to plan, but he didn't do anything that made that happen that we are shown. Like, there are a couple things when he tries to like nudge things the way that he wants them to go, but he's not the same plotter that he is in the books. Sorry, I'm trying really hard to separate them. But a lot of things happen in this movie, and it doesn't really feel like anybody is driving them forward. The Aculos is frankly underutilized, because they do get it in the end. Mulch is able to find it. It was hidden behind a picture of Artemis's dad. Mulch is like, oh, here it is. And then he's able to like break into it, and then Artemis is like, dope, we have it now. But I can't give this to Opal because she'll do bad things to the whole world. I got the sense that this is supposed to be like this turning moment when Artemis is not as cold-hearted as he was before, but we never really saw cold-hearted Artemis, so why was this needed? So he is like, okay, a human can't use it because they'll die, but I'm totally friends with Holly now, so I'll get her to use it. She uses it, and they're like, okay, she has access to these incredible magics now. And what does she do with them? She summons Artemis's dad. And like, cool, but why didn't you like summon Opal and capture her? Like, if she's gonna be this big problem, if she's a problem for the fairy world, which she's proven that she is because she wants to get the Aculos and she's cruel and is calling some shots, like, they say they know who the person is, so why don't they summon her, get her to tell the truth with the mesmer, which it is shown that they have, and then rescue Artemis's dad. Like, it just seemed completely underused. It was a stupid way to use this very powerful item that the whole movie is about. There's also this moment, again, where it's like this cheap emotional moment where they're running through the house and Holly has disappeared and they're like, oh, did the magic work or did it not work? And at first Artemis is like, I guess it didn't work. But then they see Artemis's dad and they're like, oh, yay, it worked. Like, why? That didn't cause any tension. It was just like a annoying waste of time. The same is what happens with Butler and his resurrection. Like, there's no weight to anything that happens because all of these characters are extremely underdeveloped and the stakes are super unclear because we keep shifting stakes. Oh, if Opal gets the Aculos, then she's gonna take over the world, but nobody knows that except for Artemis's dad because she tells him in a contrived monologue. Also, Artemis's dad's reputation is messed up. Also, Holly's dad's reputation is messed up. And Commander Root might be in trouble from his superiors for doing this thing, except that never comes up again, even though we mentioned it. They keep setting up all these stakes, and then a lot of times they either aren't returned to or they're glossed over in a really unsatisfying way. So they claim that Artemis is this incredible genius mastermind. Mulch is hyping him up this entire time as this incredible person. And it feels unwarranted. It feels like he hasn't earned it. Basically, all of these emotional beats feel unearned. Back to Butler's death, we barely see a connection between Artemis and Butler, other than Butler is kind of like there in the background and he's like, hey, this is what your father left. But when he dies, it doesn't really seem like that big of a deal. He's just like dying for no reason. And he's like, oh, he saved Artemis. And like, that's cool and kind of sad. But it's also drawn out a lot, where he's dying and from wounds that we can't see, and Artemis is giving him the prayer, and then he dies, and then he's alive again. This movie is just full of stuff that doesn't make sense, is inconsistent, and is unearned. Also, the resolution was super weird. Like I said, Artemis's dad gets brought back to unkidnapped land, and Artemis is like, all right, I gotta make a phone call. And then he does, and he calls Opal. First of all, how? Secondly, he calls Opal. She's like, yeah, who's this? And Artemis is like, it's me. I'm gonna come and kick your butt. And Opal's like, psh, psh, who are you to threaten me? Artemis is like, I'm Artemis Fowl.
Criminal mastermind.
And it's like, what crimes did you do? What masterminding did you do? In order to get Artemis's dad out of trouble, essentially, Mulch is just telling the cops about all of this. He's like, oh, Artemis and his dad are heroes. And if you want to keep your fairy tales instead of fairy nightmares, then you should just let them do their thing. Which doesn't make any sense. Throughout the whole movie, Artemis's big threat is, I'm gonna reveal Holly's existence to humans. It's not really established in the movie why this is a problem. In the books, I know it's because humans are conquerors. They will essentially immediately come down and ruin everything for the fairies. In the movie, we don't get that, so the stakes as to Artemis doing this are not really clear, but in the movie, it's still considered a bad thing for humans to find out. We just never get a reason. But essentially, the fairies are like, all right, we gotta make sure that nobody knows. But then the end of the movie is Mulch straight up telling authorities, hey, let them do this thing so that you'll be fine. Why are you giving away this critical information to people who were earlier in the movie snooping in on Artemis's private life and clearly having no respect for secrets or privacy? Like, why would you do that? And then Artemis descends from a helicopter and blows up the ceiling, and then Mulch climbs up the ladder and gets free. And that's pretty much the end of the movie. Artemis and his dad are going on all sorts of fairy adventures, presumably to collect more artifacts and keep them safe. But much like this video, the movie was meandering, and it wasn't good. It was barely entertaining. And I am very easily entertained. That's what was so frustrating for me, is that it doesn't take a lot to make me have a good time with something. I am very easily amused. I was bored throughout most of the movie. Like, I wasn't even mad for most of it. I was just bored. Didn't have anything that was keeping my attention. The only thing that kind of did that was Mulch. I will say, I liked the effects. The effects were cool. I liked the way that they showed the city. Haven City is built up to be this incredible thing, and it looks really good. The effects were fun and interesting. For the most part, there were a couple of moments when it's like, okay, this is a little hokey, but for the most part, they were fun to watch. There were moments of Artemis's character that I thought, oh, this could be interesting, but overall, he just seemed really bland and kind of going along with everything that was happening, very inconsistent. Like, one moment he'd be cool and manipulative Artemis, and then another moment he would be emotionally vulnerable Artemis. And this would be fine if it was set up in a way that made it impactful when he switches between these two modes, but instead it just kind of happens when it's convenient for the plot. And that sucks. You barely get a sense of anybody's character except for Mulch and Commander Root. Even the villain is not interesting. You never see Opal's face. You never have a final confrontation with her, aside from Artemis calling her magically on the phone. There's this guy who's secretly working for Opal and kind of messes with a couple of things, but he's not ever really confronted either. The only thing that happens is that Artemis's dad comes back and the Aculos goes back to the fairies, which they already said was a bad idea because Opal has better access to it there. So why did they do that? There are just a lot of things that are incoherent. And honestly, the fact that I've read the books, I think made the storyline a little bit more clear because I had context for some of the things that were going on. And it was still difficult because they changed so many things arbitrarily that I couldn't assume that certain things were the same. It's just a mess. I got the sense that it was intended to be a lot longer, that they cut a lot of stuff out, a lot of important interstitial stuff that might have explained what was going on a little bit more. So if it were me and I was making an Artemis Fowl adaptation, first of all, I would make it not a movie. It would be way better as a series, like the series of unfortunate events on Netflix. That was really well done. Artemis Fowl would have been a really good series as well because it's 8 books long. Then you can kind of do justice to Artemis's character arc. However, if you were gonna do a movie, then I don't know why they didn't just stick with the actual plot from the book, make Artemis the villain, and have him slowly become a little bit more good at the end by showing his love for his mom. Or if you wanted to make it about his dad, that's fine. Make it about his dad. He, helps his dad after he's grieving from the loss of his wife. Say that's fine. So I just don't know why they did it this way, why they changed things that didn't need to be changed. Like, Mulch is a giant dwarf in the movie, and he references it a lot, but also, so he's regular person size, and he is like, oh, I face discrimination and I just want to be like other dwarves, and so he asks for that as a reward. He's like, fairies have tons of magic, just make me into a dwarf, like a small dwarf. And Commander Root is like, but a giant dwarf is what I need right now. But then it's not really shown why he needs to be a giant dwarf. Like, it's just really unclear. Anyway, I got off topic. Oh, I found my carpal tunnel brace. That's exciting. So if I was going to make it a movie, I would focus on one of the books and follow that storyline more closely because it has a distinct beginning, middle, and end with characters and growth. If I were given the movie as it is and told to make some changes that would make it better, the first thing I would do is cut out Juliet. I don't like doing that necessarily because I really liked her movie character design and I thought it was fun that they made somebody Artemis's age, but they didn't do anything with it. They introduce her for no reason and it wastes time that could be put towards making a slicker plot. So boom, take out Juliet. Make Artemis's character consistent. It's hard because I don't even know what they were going for. It's so muddy that I can't even tell. But I would say that they're maybe going for this kid who is kind of being pushed into doing some unsavory things for the sake of his dad. If that's the personality that you want to go with, then I would say make it really clear at the beginning that he's a little bit on the softer side. Things like loving Ireland, that they have that in the movie, that's really good. Keep that. The moments that he has with his dad, where his dad is telling him stories, that's good. Keep that. Take out the psychiatrist. The reason that's in the book is so that you can reflect back on it later when Artemis has a whole bunch of people that he respects and has changed to be a person who respects other people. That doesn't happen in the movie, so there's no reason for it to be in there. That's a very, like, I'm trying to tell you that Artemis is like that instead of show you. In fact, take out all the bits in the school. It's not needed. Like, oh, Artemis is different, he doesn't have anything to learn and stuff like that. But nope. I'm not convinced. So take that part out. Focus on Artemis becoming willing to do slightly unsavory things for like a greater good. Maybe make his dad be missing for longer than like 10 hours. It's actually not super clear how long his dad has been missing here, but it seems like it's like a couple of days at most. I'm gonna say ramp up the stakes a little bit with his dad, make him missing for longer, so Artemis is really missing him, and then in his place, you can have Butler kind of acting as like a surrogate dad, so that if you want to continue keeping the scene where he almost dies and comes back to life, it actually has some emotional weight to it. Make him suffer consequences, though. It has to show, like, okay, Artemis, you're gonna do these kind of immoral things in order to get what you want, but you're gonna have to pay some consequences. That makes it better. The subplot with, I think his name is Cudgeon, he does nothing, get out of there. With him out of the way, then Opal would be forced to do more things directly. In this movie, she's like, she doesn't even have a face, she's just like a shadow figure. She's not compelling. Make her be manipulating things in the line of fire to get what she wants. Make her have a personality while you're at it that is revealed through something other than a monologue that she starts off on just because Artemis's dad asks. If you're gonna claim that some of Artemis's problem is that he misses his mom, then put that in there. Make it matter that his dad is missing. He already lost his mom. He can't bear to lose his other parent. Make it have emotional weight. Holly seems like you were going for, because in the books she's a little bit more well established. She knows how to ride to the surface and stuff like that. Here, she's much more novice. She's really pushing for her first shot. Play into that. Make her make more mistakes, but ones that aren't as stupid and unnecessary. For example, if you have the conflict between her and Artemis, maybe have her think about trying to use the mesmer to get to Artemis, who is uncomfortable with the situation, right? Because in this version, Artemis is a little bit softer, a little bit kind, still working on teaching himself essentially how to be cold-hearted so that he can get his dad back. So he's kidnapped Holly, but he wants to have this emotional beat with her. It makes sense here because that's who his character is. So he takes off the glasses. It's foolish, but again, this is a different character than the book character. Maybe Holly can have an internal monologue or something like that where she thinks about trying to manipulate him. Or maybe she knows that he's trying to get his dad back and she uses this to press her advantage, but then she changes her mind. Something to show any personality for Holly. Take out the part where Mulch wants to become a regular-sized dwarf. It does nothing. It adds nothing to the plot, and it doesn't make his character more interesting. Keep him as comic relief. That's what he's there for. Leave him that way. Your attempt at making him have a character arc was terrible, and it should be removed. Make it clear that Opal's a bad guy. Everyone's like, oh, Opal's dangerous, but like, again, we don't really see her do anything that dangerous other than kidnapping Artemis's dad. I know this is supposed to be a movie for kids, but you can very easily still make her scary. Like, there's so many Disney villains that are scary and intimidating and a fun villain to have, and Opal isn't any one of these. She's not even really a good, like, working in the shadows kind of villain because she doesn't do anything. The only thing she does is tell Cudgeon to take over, reasons that are kind of unclear. So removing a villain who is basically useless anyway and putting instead the bigger, badder villain in would show that she can do things that are harmful and dangerous and evil and self-centered. For example, Opal in the books is extremely vain, very obsessed with her beauty. In the movie, you can show that by basically, I don't know, you're gonna change the rules of the world. Make her make a serum out of ladybugs or something, and that helps keep her face fresh. If you don't want to crush ladybugs, then go with flowers, this beautiful field of flowers, and it's destroyed because Opal keeps going there to rip up the flowers to make a serum to keep her face beautiful because she cares more about herself than she does about the world. That's the kind of thing that you can do to make her have a distinct personality. Make her be petty and jealous of Holly and make her do something about it. Okay, she wants magical power and to take over the world. Show her being enraged at the depictions of fairies. Don't just have her say, oh, even worse, this other thing that you did. Have her be furious at these depictions, these unreasonable depictions. It can be as easy as her seeing a fairy tale book and throwing it into a fire or clawing at the page. Something like that to show that she has violent tendencies and she will destroy things to get her way. She's not convincing as is. Not only is she not convincing, she's not scary. She has Artemis's dad captive and she never does anything to him other than keep him captive. Like, he seems to be perfectly fine. She threatened to kill him, but we don't really have proof that she's gonna follow up on that. Also, why didn't she just tell Artemis what the Aculos was? If her goal was to get it, doesn't it make more sense to have him know what it is immediately instead of setting up this contrived plot that will allow him to slowly come into his own, which isn't really even what happened because he just finds his dad's journal and learns what it is? Like, if she wants the Aculos, make her tell Artemis what it is. Or give her a good reason for not doing that. She wants the Aculos, but she is afraid that he will use it to get its power. So she says, you don't need to know what it is. Just bring it to me. Why are you questioning me? Then you can demonstrate how bossy and heartless she is. Like, why are you asking me this when I'm about to kill your dad? Just bring it to me. Figure it out. Just bring it to me. It's an acorn-shaped magical thing. You don't need to know what it does. What you need to do is give it to me. That would be way more compelling than, you'll figure it out. She even calls him a clever boy. We have no reason. How does she know that? Why does she think that he's smart? Is it because he's the latest in the Fowl Empire? Is it because his dad has said that he's smart? Like, why? What is your reasoning for this? Also, there's like some fairy politicky stuff. I would say to take that out too, because we don't dive into it deeply enough for it to feel compelling or for it to be a complete narrative. It just wastes time. So let's take that out too, so that we can focus more on the characters that we do have in the movie, so that things have emotional weight. Also take out that part where they're just like waiting for Artemis's dad to show up. Like, if you have to have the ending be that Holly brings him, just have him bring him immediately. Like, why was that scene there? There was no reason. It added nothing. All it did was waste time. So cut that part out too. Then, if you have to keep it at about 90 minutes, you'll have time to establish each of the characters. Maybe make Opal hurt Artemis's dad as well, just a little bit. Or make her starve him or something like that. Make it clear that she will do him harm unless Artemis is able to do this. So, those are basically all my thoughts. I still rambled a lot longer than I intended to, but hopefully I'll cut this down into something manageable. If you watched this whole video, thank you so much for sticking around for my rambling. And if you've read the books or seen the movie or both, let me know down in the comments what you thought of either or both of them. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. Like, did you enjoy the movie? Like a guilty pleasure type of movie? I didn't think it was that, but maybe some other people did. Like, if you haven't read the books and you have seen the movie especially, I'm even more interested in that, because I know I tried to separate my thoughts on the books and my thoughts on the movie at the end there, but I did not do a very good job the entire time. So let me know what you thought. Thanks for hanging out. Down below, I'll have some links to some causes that you can maybe try and help out with, at least give them a look if you have the time or energy to do that. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good night, universe.